What's up, YouTubers? This is Dirk coming at you with the 2002 Honda Accord EX CV axle. This will be the driver's side. It goes in the car like this, with the axle nut on that end. You have your inner joint and your outer joint.
I don't believe you. Continue.
Try to notice the difference in the sound when I slightly pull the steering wheel to the left. Here's to the right. This is a 36 millimeter axle nut. By the way, I saw this from South Main Auto. Love your channel, Eric, on South Main Auto. And he talked about, won't name a brand, but he talked about these boxes always smelling like marijuana. And it is true, they smell disgusting. We have a castle nut on the ball joint of the control arm, and this fork or knuckle that comes down. You have two 17 millimeter bolts, one that my finger's touching on the back side and one on this side. So really all you're doing is removing the ball joint nut and getting this fork out of the way, because you can't pull the boot of the CV axle out. There's not enough room in this fork here. So once you remove this nut here and kind of separate the fork from this control arm, then the axle will be able to actually come down, especially with the ball joint nut off. So let's get to that. I've got a whole package of these cotter pins, but if I can reuse one, why not? Okay, cotter pins out. Huzzah! Yeah, I'm just gonna keep hammering it because I don't want to damage that intermediate shaft in any way. And if I was reusing this, I would be a whole lot more careful, obviously. Now you can see why. If this knuckle were all the way in there, you couldn't get it, but if I simply pull that forward, it comes out. So, reverse process. The outer joint goes in first. So, pretty good shot of the inside there. Just need to put the new CV shaft in there. In terms of prepping this, you could still see some of my high temp grease that I had in there, just enough to lubricate really the splines there where that axle's going through. So take the axle nut off, obviously. Do you see this little ring C-clamp that's spinning there on the end? Okay, when you're moving this will be moving and realigning, and it might be hung up like that. I can't run my finger over it, and then when you spin it, it just kind of pops down, and then you're able to move it. I'm literally getting that much. And just coating that to make sure it's all good. And while we're at it, I'm gonna flip it around and do, not on the threads, just on the spline here. Less is more mentality. Quite the gloobs right there. I'll get some While we're at it, I'm gonna go get my copper anti-seize for the threads. That's all she wrote on this baby for preparation. I've got the huge jug of this copper anti-seize, but I love it when you buy like a oxygen sensor or something that comes with this little Denso packet, a whole lot easier. And yes, I see it on the spline. I'll get it. Again, less is more. It's my mentality. Good enough. Won't hurt anything if that happens to get on. But now as we spin that nut on, it's all good. Okay, reverse order. Kind of have to get this in position. And that's it. Oh, not, there we go. Okay, at this point, hopefully you guys can see. Yep, at this point it's in. All right. So, just aligning it so I can still see those splines. Just being very gentle to kind of turn it. Try to wait until I see that little ring, that clamp that goes around, that C-clamp. Just barely knocking on the end. Okay, come on now. Okay. This is the CV axle. This is the intermediate shaft. Just trying to show, it was pretty difficult to film. I had to kind of basically, yes, very tight. I had to pick this up and you can essentially knock it forward. Not very, I wouldn't recommend doing it very hard, but we'll dissect the old one. You can kind of see the guts of this inner joint, but basically you're just starting it, much like starting a bolt on threads. You just want to make sure it's on. When you first put that shaft, the spline shaft of the CV axle into the intermediate shaft, you just want to make sure that it's in there by barely twisting on it, and you'll feel it once it catches. And then just give it a few knocks pushing forward and it'll bottom out. And at this point, right, you can hear that it's hitting just metal on metal. And in there, the boot is where it needs to be. It's not been pulled or anything. And now we're gonna get, let me get out of the car. And now we're gonna clean this up since I was holding it so much. Just wipe all this down, high temp grease, copper anti-sealant, or anti-seize, and then put it through there, and we'll redo all get the ball joint in, get this knuckle bolt castle nut on, and hope to high heaven that nasty sound is gone. Okay, so now take our little brace off. I try to put it on my knees and on my legs, but kind of a pain in the butt, I'm being honest. But all right. There she is. Hopefully you could see that. All right. And okay, all the way on. Now, ball joint is back in the control arm. And I'm just going to hand tighten that castle nut. Same thing on this insanely rusty bolt. We're gonna just make a nice little mess of anti-seize. And yes, I'll wipe it all off. You can see just how many contact points there are. Just trying to lightly coat it, not too much. And especially down there, that bolt head. very lightly. She's through. Okay. And seems like the anti-seize, I lost a little bit of it coming through. So if I got it, why not use it just a little bit on the end of those threads so that the next time somebody does this, that's beautiful, they say thank you. And I'll have to take this off soon anyway because my boot is destroyed, which is never fun. All right, just gonna align it. Yeah, I actually had a pretty good shot and I just covered it up. I'm gonna back that off a little bit. Yeah. No need to break a stud. There it is. Plenty tight. Like I said, especially since I'll be redoing the dumb thing. I may want to just get a new cotter pin, man. Nah, why do that when you can just shove this thing through? She ain't going anywhere. Now, oh, my head. That's all she wrote, baby. Okay. I have just spun this axle nut on by hand. Okay, taking this thing apart to see what the problem was. I just took my Dremel, sawed through these little braces that held it on both sides. These are going to be full of goop and disgustingness. Highly recommend you wear gloves. On the end that goes into the intermediate shaft, you can see these 3 openings here where this is the end of that. This doesn't move, but these little ball bearings, they only go one way, like that, and then once all 3 of them are on, then those slide in. So when you hear, like we did putting it back in, that metal on metal, that's all that is. That bearing is just bottomed out, and all 3 of those then will move and rotate as you turn the tire. It allows for the room. On this side, you'll see that's why they call it a CV joint, continuous velocity, because it turns as you turn the wheel and it goes up and down. But what you need to do is get I'm gonna get a little screwdriver. You pop out these bearings, and when all those are out, I'll be able to pull this out, clean it all off with some junk rags here, and then hopefully we'll see what the failure was on this. Real quick here, you need to cut. If you have a vise that you can put the whole axle in, you just hit it right around here. It'll come off. There could be a little snap ring on the bottom of this axle. That's why it won't come off. I had to just take my angle grinder and cut it off. And then what you do is then hit, let's see, where's that last ball bearing of mine? You hit it until the point where that opens. These things just pop right out like that. Now, I'm gonna need 2 hands, but I'm gonna pull this is called an inner race and this outer race. I'm gonna pull these apart, kind of clean this out. I don't see any pitting or anything on the inside of this. So again, I wish I would have, seen something horrible, but you have this inner race right here and an outer race, this ring. These ball bearings sit inside of this, which then sits inside of this outer race, and those ball bearings can't get through that way, and then they all rotate inside this, and that's what makes it a continuous velocity joint, because the input shaft right here, as it turns, be that side, as it turns, whatever rate that this shaft is turning, the output of the spline and the wheel hub is turning at the same rate. So didn't see any carnage, but I already took it on a test drive and it seems to be fixed, and sounds better when I start it up and drives smooth and all that. So, you know, if the sound returns, we'll just address that problem, but that's what the guts of a CV axle look like. Tighten up your lug nuts, drop it down, torque them to 80 foot-pounds, and that's all she wrote.